cracking any examination is always considered to be very tough. And there are keys and success mantras. Amongst us, we have Dr. Darpan Ahluwalia, who has just cracked the examination and she was AIR 80th. And one issue which we kept on receiving the messages was whether she would be giving her insights only to crack the IAS examination. We said that is considered to be one of the toughest. But yes, since she has immense knowledge as to how one has to study extensively, intensively, and how one has to proceed for any examination is a key. Therefore, when we kept the topic was deliberately kept as decodifying the examination and interview with special emphasis on UPSC. And in an ordinary course, the IAS officer or office invariably creates its own impact and people come to know. And once you crack the examination, the newspapers and all the social medias are gaga about what we say, the resume or profile. But be that as it may, we are just giving a short profile of Dr. Darpan Ahluwalia. She is a medico graduated from Government Medical College, Patiala, and is currently based in Mohali and is working for a Tri-City NGO. And she's also passionate about jogging, teaching, and contributing her bit to penetrate healthcare services. But one of the best facet which we liked about Dr. Darpan Ahluwalia was she liked the teaching. So during this webinar, it will not be teaching, but somewhat we could say that there would be shades of teaching while she would be helping us to understand the decoding of the examination. And amongst us, we have also Mr. Vivek Atre, who has been on our platform. And he's a former IAS officer, author, and mentor, and he has also been giving insights to crack the examination. As they say, two heads are always better than one. And two people combining and giving the insights. So yes, what we say man of the moment for today would be Dr. Darpan Ahluwalia. But we cannot, as they say once in cricket, there are two players. The other player on the other side of the wicket also plays an equal contribution. So therefore, Mr. Vivek Atre would also be giving contributions by his insights and in between his way of cracking the examinations, not only on IAS and others. And not taking much time because as they say, the man of the moment today is Dr. Darpan Ahluwalia. And in the writer term, once being in the legal terminology, I will ask ma'am to explain. Like in the law, in all departments, they say don't say chairman. They should be codified as the chairperson. So I could say person of the moment, taking cue from that. Over to you, Dr. Darpan Ahluwalia. I will just say that first give a broader perspectives of entire perspectives as to how one should prepare for the examination, what were your challenges, and how you proceeded further. Then today we have slightly different module of going ahead. Ma'am will be giving a short bird eye view of how to crack the examinations, how to prepare for the interview. And then we will be taking certain questions which we feel that in the ordinary course of mind, which will be coming and creeping up in the minds of the participants, those who are watching us live on the Facebook or on this platform. And then we will also be taking questions which we ordinarily take at around 50 minutes from when we start off. But today we'll be taking early. So all those participants who want to ask certain questions can post the questions. But the time constraint of the webinar in the outer limit would be around 1.5 hours. So that has to be kept in mind because I understand IAS or any other examination is a topic where large number of questions keep on pouring in. But we believe that the time is the essence of everything. So we'll do that. Just short introduction by Mr. Atre or Dr. Darpan Ahluwalia, and then she takes over.
Thank you, Vikasji, for inviting me also to speak today. And it's a pleasure to see Darpan Ahluwalia once again. She is a very bright young lady and has a lot of empathy for society. And she's also already been doing a lot of good work with an NGO for cancer awareness. As a doctor and as an NGO activist, she's been already contributing to society. And now having cracked the civil services exam with a very high rank of 80, I think she'll be doing a lot for society in her career. And also to say that this is probably my third appearance in this Beyond Law series, and it's very nice to be here. And always good to see friends from the legal fraternity and others in the audience. So Today we'll be talking about the IAS a little bit, about other services. We'll be talking about the exam, the big exam and other exams. So over to you, Darpan, for your opening remarks and a little bit about your journey.
Thank you, sir. Warm greetings to Atre, sir. It's always a pleasure to interact with you. And thank you to Beyond Law as well for giving me this online platform to interact with all the listeners out there. So my journey through this exam, it spans over a couple of years. So I have a few insights into the tangible things that are required for this exam. Of course, there are many intangible determinants as well, be it luck, blessings, etc., which also determine. They all fit into the jigsaw puzzle, so to say. But a few things that I can share with you regarding my journey and a few tips that I can proffer at this moment are that first of all, when anybody sits for an exam, the strategy is very secondary. Foremost is the motivation behind it. Because especially for those exams which span over 2 to 3 stages, for example, be it UPSC, or if we have many lawyers out there, then PCS judiciary exam also, there's the prelims, mains, and the interview. So as a human being, we do not look at the very long-term thing. That is, delayed gratification is the thing that is very difficult to imbibe. So we always look at the short-term gains. So it is it is a big prerequisite that we maintain a long-term perspective and remain detached from the results. This can only happen if we have a very strong motivation. So this motivation that I'm talking about, it can be both intrinsic and extrinsic. Extrinsic would be like this webinar, and even many YouTube videos that you can get online, be it a song, etc. But they are all very ephemeral. So one needs to focus on the why you want to do it. That is your intrinsic motivation. It should be clear. It could be like, my parents want me to crack it, or any other reason for that matter. It's a very subjective thing. And as they say, if your how is clear, then why it automatically becomes very clear. So on that note, I would like to add that my motivation itself came from my graduation. I graduated from Government Medical College, Patiala. And then unfortunately, I was, during my internship, I was first posted for a couple of months in the labor room. And a few things which I saw over there, they actually inspired me to take up this journey. And during the course of the exam itself, it becomes such a source of motivation and inspiration to study further and crack it. Next, after the motivation comes the ecosystem part. So building a very solid ecosystem around you is very essential for cracking this exam. Now, by the term ecosystem, I mean you could be sitting solitarily and studying, or you could be going to a library, or as in UPSC, the trend is many people go to Delhi from North India. It's said to be like the Hogwarts of civil services. But personally, for me, I wanted an ecosystem where there is psychological and emotional support and comfort all the year round. So I chose to study from the confines of my home. And so you need to fix up your ecosystem after you've decided your motivation, what is the motivational factor of it all. Then I think after all this, there is a big nagging issue which troubles all the aspirants out there. And I'm sure if anybody is preparing for the exam, you would resonate with me as well. That is the paradox of choice. See, every human being desires choice, so that we have a couple of choices on a platter and we can choose the best thing out of them. Who likes a single option? But sometimes in such competitive exams, it becomes a kind of a bane. So it is called a paradox of choice. For example, when I sat for the exam last year, I went till the interview stage, but I did not find my name in the final PDF. So there were many of my friends who had already entered into the post-graduation. I was well versed with the medical subjects, so I knew I could get into the post-graduation, but I still kept on going through this journey. So never let your choice or your option or your plan B, C, D, etc. Be so bright that it actually blurs the plan A. So one needs to be very careful about this paradox of choice that I'm talking about right here. Since I've talked about all these prerequisite things which one needs to keep in mind for any and every exam, now I move on to the strategy. So my strategy was that I would read and then I would make notes, and revision was the key. So reading, in this aspect, I followed the concept of speed reading. So in speed reading, you shut down the internal monologue you have in your mind with yourself, and you're just reading the important points. No reading of, you just skip the superfluous parts, especially with respect to the newspapers or with respect to the heavy books. This comes in handy. And then I have told before as well, and reiterating it again, that in this aspect, the rule of 10 is very important. For example, if you're reading a 200 pages book, then you make the notes of only 1/10 of that total number of the pages. That is, you're making just 20 notes of the 20 pages of the notes. And then on the subsequent revision, say the third or the fourth revision, you're cutting down it to 2 notes. So that's the way I went about it. And hence, I like to call it the rule of 10 while revising and making notes. Second very important part of my strategy was that I had a very comprehensive approach via reverse engineering and hyperlinking. So for example, if I'm searching something on the net, then I will not only search that, but I will search the allied matter related to it as well. For example, if I'm searching for, say, a national park in, say, Madhya Pradesh, then I'm searching for the other national parks in Madhya Pradesh as well. Then another example I can give you is that Khajuraho temples are there. So I'm not just reading about Khajuraho, I'm also reading about the mini Khajuraho and the little Khajuraho, that is the Markandeshwara temple and the Bandadeva temple, etc. So one needs to have a bird's eye view of the whole topic to be very confident about it. This I call the hyperlinking method and the reverse engineering method. Then I lay a lot of stress on the writing aspect of it as well. For the exams which demand a written paper, there is something which is called as the brain-hand coordination. So as much as you move your hand in the exam, there will be better coordination between your hand and your brain. So one needs to build that up over time by practicing as many questions as you can of the previous year questions or of any question which is available online, and get it checked from a good mentor in whom you have immense trust in. So practicing is very important. And also you will get a lot of courage on the D-Day to write the exam, because I actually believe that courage is like a muscle. The more you use it, the more it will get strengthened. So you need to have immense confidence in yourself while writing the answer. So this can only come if you are not writing your first answer on the day of the exam itself. It is the biggest blunder one can ever make. Also, with respect to the exams, which are not focused on the writing aspect, but they are focused on the MCQ aspect, in which 4 or 5 options are given. So for this also, I cannot lay enough stress on the importance of the mock tests and the mock examinations in this regard. Because especially where there is the negative marking, you need to find your zone of comfort. For example, some of the candidates might prefer marking questions, a number of questions between 85 to 90, while for others, the range may be between 80 to 85. So personally for me, over the course of many mock tests, I had evaluated myself and I came to the conclusion that perhaps 78 to 80 questions marked with good accuracy will sail me through the prelims. So this is the importance of sitting for the mock test. Also, even if you're sitting for the MCQ exam or the written exam, make the watch your best friend. Because even if you leave 1 or 2 questions in the exam, then you're already out of the game. Even if you write a single paragraph about, say, a 10 marker or a 15 marker, it will put you a few notches higher up in the game, which means multiple services and even your state cadres, etc. So make the clock your best friend. So personally for me, I can share this with you that whenever 6.5 minutes of the clock passed by, I used to automatically leave the pen and move on to the next question. So that way one needs to respect the clock a lot while you're sitting for the exam. And then after we have done all the revision and we know the importance of the mock tests, etc., in UPSC CSE, we have to take an optional subject. So the next aspect of my guidance will be based upon the importance of the optional subject. So the importance of the optional subject is that it's almost as half, it carries half of the marks of the general studies. So choosing the optional subject is of paramount importance. It should be chosen appropriately according to your aptitude and according to the time and the effort you can put into it. Personally, for me, I took medical science as an optional in UPSC exam because I think that I thought that it would let me a very good backup option if I'm not able to clear UPSC, because the exam is itself unpredictable. So I chose this exam, I chose this optional, and also I had a solid foundation in it, considering that I had given about 5.5 years of my education, of my undergraduation to this. But there are many speculations in the market which you need to turn a deaf ear to. For example, there will be many people who will be even talking about law, that law is not a scoring subject or medical science is not a scoring subject. But you yourself know what are your strengths and weaknesses. So when you're sitting for any exam, you need to read the syllabus and then evaluate for yourself, instead of listening to the naysayers and the speculations which are going on in the market regarding any option. And then I would say that when you are interacting with people, or when you're seeing their question paper answer papers online, be it of any exam, and then never compare your answers with that paper which has been uploaded, the topper's answer sheet, as they say, because you cannot compare your A, B, or C with that topper's X, Y, Z, or even AA. So never ever compare your journey with anybody else. You have a different journey. The destination might be same, but the journeys, they are always very different. And then I would say that practice the concept of the delayed gratification. Stay away from the energy vampires, as I like to call, and make a circle. Do not be very socially aloof. Have a good social circle which motivates you at all times. Because many of the times what aspirants do is that they think that staying in a four-walled room all the time, studying for 12 to 14 hours is the funda of cracking this exam. This is totally untrue. Because for cracking any exam, a very superior quality of observational skills need to be inculcated throughout this process. For example, it could be anything. If I'm interacting with an advocate, I used to go back and I used to study about the Advocates Act, because this actually helped me in my prelims, because there was one question in the 10-year papers when I was practicing on the Bar Council of India. So I had already talked to someone who was an advocate with this LLB background, and I could actually crack that question on the basis of that knowledge. So they had asked whether it is a statutory or a constitutional body, and it is the profession regulating body, etc. So that is the importance of having very good observational skills. Even for that matter, reading non-academic books for any exam that you're sitting in today's era, that is also very important. This time in my prelims, there was a question on Denisovans, which is given on the first 2 or 3 pages of Yuval Noah Harari's book, Sapiens. So that really helps. And one very important aspect that I want to lay focus on is the vicious and the virtuous cycle of the exam. So what happens often with us, with the aspirants, and has happened with me as well in the past, is that the syllabus piles up. We are unable to understand how much time we will be able to cover it. The effort required is very tremendous. It stresses us out, and we are able to study even less. So we don't study, and then again the syllabus piles up, the stress compounds. So this creates a vicious cycle of sorts, and we start believing that, oh, I can't crack the exam. I don't have it in me. Maybe these toppers who have cracked the exam, they have something very unique in them. I'm not worthy. And we start giving A, B, C reasons that I've studied from this school. I've studied from perhaps a Hindi medium, English medium school. I wouldn't be able to crack. These all are superfluous reasons, because every exam in India at this time, there multiple people are coming from multiple backgrounds and cracking it. So there is no reason in the world why you can't crack it. The only thing is that you need to convert this vicious cycle to virtuous cycle. Break the cycle somewhere. Pick up the book. It requires just a fraction of a minute to actually make the decision to pick up a book. It does not require multiple motivational videos on YouTube, but only a fraction of a minute or even a second to make up your mind and to read the book. And as the syllabus keeps on decreasing, so does your stress. So this, I would say that these were some of the nuggets which I can point out from my journey, which really helped me. And I think they are applicable across all the sections. And if there is any UPSC specific question or any other allied question, which the audience or the viewers would like to ask, I would be happy to answer
that. What you said at the first brush, that 1/10 one has to learn from 200 to 10 books. I could understand the way you have just sum up how the examination has been done. I would say rather than 1/10, you have just made it to 1/5 and you've been able to put the things across in the right perspective. Though Anubhav Garg has said that he will be asking a question, first I will ask Mr. Atre, because he has been mentoring so many IAS examination and himself being a motivational speaker. And as you said that there are certain distressing times, yes, they say that every time, no one can have the best of the success. At one point of time, I read even the best of the businessmen, they also falter at one program or the other. Maybe even the best players who say they play in the share market, they also falter. So how one keeps themselves motivated, and what are his mantras? Where does he agree with you? What does he want to buttress that? Because they always say that it's easy to disagree. And it's also easy to agree once they say two like people always think alike. So here is a platform where we have two IAS officers where we know that they will always be thinking alike. Though the line of direction and thought process to cracking the examination may vary, but as you said that the process, the destination is the same, but the process could be different. And what processes, while he heard you, he feels they are the same, and what are the processes which he says that if this could also be followed, this is another path. So we will have the two-way path to reach that destination. Over to you, Mr. Atre.
Thank you, Vikas, and thank you, Darpan. I think you were very eloquent. I think Darpan explained the nuances of the exam very well. There are 5 lakh to 10 lakh people at any given time preparing for this exam in our country. And every year, I think about 8 lakh people fill up the form, 5 lakh or so actually appear, 800 and something are selected for all the services combined. IAS is about 100 people, I guess. But the point is that all these people know all these answers, but they don't think about them as logically as Darpan has explained. He's actually hit the nail on the head in many ways and told us some nuggets, which even I had not heard from toppers. And she's analyzed her mind very well as to what should be the strategy. Whether you, Darpan, actually implemented all these things in toto or you aspired to implement them, you only know. But guiding others, I think you are doing a fabulous job by telling them these secrets, so to say. For example, you mentioned that hesitation which is there about just starting your study period and picking up a book. I personally feel that, the general studies is not to be learned by a couple of years of study. It's a lifelong pursuit. And your general awareness develops over the years. Like you said, you met a lawyer, that one question came, you answered that question. You read Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari, and that point was there. These things cannot be done in 1 year or 2 years. They will happen over a lifetime. If you read somewhere that in Finland, they have e-citizenship, and e-citizenship is actually increasing their smartness levels, their technology levels, you will not forget it. Somewhere, if that question comes in the prelims, you are appearing after 5 years, you will use it. So I think general awareness, the first thing is that any aspirant to any exam, whether it is a UPSC exam or banking or any other, or any competitive exam for judiciary, General awareness is something they need to work on ever since their school years, college years. They need to accumulate information and then park it somewhere in the brain. And it is our brains are amazing organs or devices which can store information which is remarkable. You never know what you learned about 10 years ago comes in handy in a meeting. Even after you start your career, there are opportunities in the government service. There will be opportunities for a lawyer in practice to use some nugget or information which was actually heard or learned many, many, many years ago. The second aspect, which Darpan perhaps did not mention as much, and she must have done, is she did mention actually that if you are answering questions for the first time in the exam, then that's a big mistake. So a lot of writing practice is essential. And if you are a good communicator, that means your mind is organized. If you have 3 points to make home about some aspect, let's say you're talking about the Delhi Metro, whether Delhi Metro has been good for Delhi, not good for Delhi, how has it reduced the traffic on the streets, has it reduced the pollution in Delhi, did it come at the right time, is the planning okay, is it not okay, was the execution above board, was it efficient, how does it compare with the rest of the world in all the metros that are there. So if you have an analytical and organized mind, you will bring out those points in your answer, but you need to practice before the exam, much before. And you need to have a mind which works in a way that is commensurate with the requirements of any examination system. So you will basically know that I don't beat about the bush. I can't start from third man if I want to come to the slips. I'm picturizing a cricket field now. If you are talking about a particular fielding position, you will have to give the aspects of that particular position, what is required there. Reflexes are required, alacrity is required, flexibility is required, speed is required, and then catching ability is required. So whatever you analyze, it has to be focused, it has to be well informed and well analyzed and reproduced. So I think these qualities will definitely help any aspirant in any exam. And Darpan also mentioned very truly that don't listen too much to she called them naysayers. And she also, I think you use the term energy vampires, you said, I think. Yes. So energy vampires are those who are sucking your energy away. And they are those who are making you feel low. They are those who are probably destroying your peace of mind. आपका नहीं हुआ पिछली बारी, अब कैसे होगा? You know, आप इतने साल से पढ़ रहे हो, पता नहीं कुछ हो भी रहा है, नहीं हो रहा, time waste कर रहे हो. Somebody will say that also. If you are studying for the UPSC exam. I won't name two IAS officers, but I'll tell you a little story. They were both from Patiala many, many years ago. One of them was appearing for the third time for the UPSC exam, and the other one was appearing for the first time. And they were studying together. And later on, they met somewhere. I was also there. They were laughing about it. So the one who was preparing for the first time, he said that in my mind, I used to think this person is appearing for the third time. How will he crack it now if he didn't crack it the first 2 times? And the person who was appearing for the third time is thinking of the first timer. He says, I didn't crack it in my first and second attempts. How will he crack it in his first attempt? That's what they are both thinking. And ultimately, on that occasion, in that year, both of them made it to Mussoorie. And they did not keep in touch in the last few months, so they didn't know. When they reached Mussoorie, or maybe they had seen the list, they were so pleasantly surprised to see that the other person has also made it. So you never know. Never think negatively. Never think that you are less than anyone else. And if you have the preparation ability, that hard work, that general awareness, communication skills, balance of mind, a little alertness and sharpness and awareness, then you will definitely succeed. And we'll talk about the interview also, but there are so many qualities that you need to imbibe along the way, which will help. Over to you, Vikas, once more.
So as you rightly said, that they always say that the grass is always greener on the other side, or they say that what you said, the energy vampires and all, they actually, very few people can actually push you that you can do. And what you were saying, what Dr. Darpan said and you said, I remember we had Justice J.L. Gupta. He used to say that wherever there is ing, that is cycling, swimming, studying, whatever you do once, you don't forget it. So it's only the practice when the muscle power, let's assume it's cycling, it's swimming or studying. The more you do, the more the efficiency can improve. But the fact that you have learned all these things where there's this ing will continue to remain within your brains. But it is the only question where you focus it and how you synchronize it in a better way. So for the participants, we are just saying that we have, as we stated at the first instance, that we have framed certain questions which will come in the mind of a common participant. So we can take those questions. First question to Dr. Darpan would be, Dr. Darpan, how has life changed after cracking the UPS exam? What was more satisfying, journey of civil services preparation or destination cracking exam with flying colors? Or to show to the people otherwise, those who used to say कि Dr. Darpan ये कर रही है पर होगा नहीं.
So first of all, sir, coming to the journey and the destination part, I'm sure getting this rank is not a destination in itself. I'm sure Vivek sir can shed more light on it, because this is definitely not the destination. I think this is the beginning of the main journey, I would say. The rest were just the byroads to the beginning of the journey. And coming to your question, I think the journey of sitting for this exam, it's like doing multiple BAs of different subjects at the same time. So it is really empowering and it makes you grow in multiple facets. For example, had I stayed in just my medical field, no matter how mobile it is, but I would have had a very unidirectional mental or a psychological growth. Whereas by just sitting for this exam, irrespective of what rank or what service one gets into, I think it gives you immense confidence, knowledge, information, awareness about your surroundings, not only your own country, but also at the international forum, which gives you immense confidence in life in general. And of course, knowledge never goes waste. So I have always cherished and valued the journey aspect of it. And as it is, I was very detached from the result. And I believe that this rank was just a bonus. And so I think the journey was more fruitful for me. And coming to how life has changed post the result, of course, there are multiple changes. And I ventured out of the home for the first time. In fact, after the result came out, till then I was just busy studying, slogging out hard. You meet new people, there are new friends, and whatever you say, it gets a new perspective. But I think at the end of the day, the journey is itself so sobering that you learn patience, perseverance, and whatnot. So that really helps you to stay grounded and to be motivated that yes, the journey has just begun.
Atraji, Anubhav Garg is wanting to ask a question. Mr. Anubhav, kindly show your video and you can ask the question.
Hello, yeah, all right. I'm just turning on my video. Yeah. Good evening to all, good afternoon to all the panelists. So my question is not a very generic one. My question is, ma'am, what is an ideal routine for a UPSC candidate? And if not an ideal routine, then what was your routine when you were appearing for UPSC? Because I believe that consistency sits on the threshold of success, and that consistency can only be achieved if you have a set routine. So I would like to know a bit on that aspect. Thanks. This is my question. Thanks, Vikas sir, for taking it.
Not an issue.
Okay, coming to the routine aspect, Anubhav. So what my funda was that I used to devote around 45 to 50% of my time to my optional. It was very vast. So depending upon what your optional is, you have to take a call. And coming to the rest of the 50%, about 30 to 35% has to be devoted to GS, that is the general studies. And the rest of it can be devoted to the current affairs. So depending upon what time you're putting in, but I would suggest for you that the minimum number of hours that you should be putting in should be 8 to 10 hours is the minimum. And then rest, of course, it depends upon what is the quality of the time that you're actually investing in it. And one very important tip of sort that I would like to tell you is that We often believe that the toppers study for 14 to 15, 16 hours at a stretch. That is absolutely untrue. Let me tell you, I have a confession to make. Mostly we realize our strategies after we crack the exam. So sometimes you must have heard many saying 16 to 17 hours. As a medico also, I do not support this theory. It is psychologically, mentally, it is impossible for a person to study for that long. You study according to what is required for you. You know your strength and weakness, your memorizing power, you know that. And one advice is that after every 10 days, do take a break. In that break, do not think about your exam, nothing doing, but take a break. And after every 7 days, say on Sunday, you have to revise what you have done throughout the week. Without revision, multiple revisions, what you've done throughout the week will be very redundant at the end of the day. So every Sunday, one revision, and then monthly revision is also very mandatory. So that is the way I went about it.
Thank you, Dr. Darpan. Mr. Atre, you can take the second question, the questions which we have framed.
Yeah, I just take a minute. Can you read it out first?
So you have a long list of academic achievements, 90% in boards, third in MBBS, rank 2 in AIMS Medical Fest, now a Tri-City topper. Which achievement is closest to your heart?
Go ahead, Darpan.
Right, sir. Well, sir, these all are academic achievements. And for me, since I think school times itself, for me, academics always had a secondary place. Extracurricular, as they say, was the first and the foremost thing that I used to look up to in school. So I was very active in debates, declamations, and elocutions and whatnot. And I think everybody should cherish their non-academic achievements more than the academic achievements. And this especially came in handy for me during my interview that is called as the personality test in UPSC. Because the personality of one is not built up in a couple of months by studying from here and there, reading newspapers and everything. That is not the way the personality test is designed in the UPSC. So I think in these all which you enumerated were my academic achievements. But if I have to point out one, I think it would be my pre-medical test, which gave me a seat in my medical college, primarily for the reason that it did not give me the prefix of a doctor, but for the reason that it became my motivation to sit for the civil services examination.
I'll take up the next one, Vikaji. So
Yeah.
This is related to the interview. Darpan, you appeared twice for the interview, right?
Yes.
So the interview of the UPSC exam and any other interview is alike. But the point is that there is a board of distinguished people there, and it is known as a personality test. These people may or may not have the same viewpoint among themselves also. Often they take a liking to a candidate, often they can even take a disliking to a candidate. So how tricky is the interview and how did you prepare and how was your experience the two times?
So in common parlance, we do call the last stage of UPSC as the interview. But as I mentioned before, even UPSC does not term it as an interview. It's called a personality test. And the moment one realizes and imbibes this within their own personality, I think then the interview becomes a very enjoyable experience. In fact, I believe that the personality test, it is like the honeymoon stage of the whole UPSC cycle. And both the times I looked up to it like it was a very enjoyable experience. First of all, what more do you want than such a prestigious board, 10 years, who are all there listening to you, and you just need to give your viewpoints in a very formal way, of course, and all the viewpoints, they are accepted. It's not as if there is a debate going inside. It's a very discussion, albeit formal. So one needs to one can sit for multiple mock tests if one is very apprehensive of the D-Day. And I think multiple mock tests help one. But other than that, what helped me in the interview is that I had put in a lot of thought into my DAF, that is the detailed application form, which is present in front of the board members. So that contains our extracurricular activities, what are hobbies, passion, any prizes and scholarships that we've won. Now, it does not make any sense to fill the whole form with multiple prizes that we have achieved over the years. One should be very intelligently fixing the prizes very strategically in the form. So write whatever is very interesting, about which you're very confident, and which can have many secondary and supplementary questions. Because if there is only one question which is asked on it, then it might not fetch you multiple points. However, it is a very win-win situation if there is an interesting thing and supplementary questions can be asked. So in a way, one cannot really decide the flow of the interview, because of course the members are very experienced and they can get to know, they can look through you. But if you have a very strategic DAF, that is a detailed application form, then one can somehow decide the flow of the interview, because obviously what is very interesting in your DAF is bound to be picked up by the panel. So in my area, so I would like to give certain examples. Like I was asked about my NGO, and I was asked about a question on medical ethics. So it was all related to my personal domain, all situational questions, nothing factual. So I think that set the mood of the personality test in a very good direction. And so yes, this was my strategy for the personality test.
This is by Stanley. Ma'am, could you explain the hyperlinking method and speed reading, and also how to bring 200 pages to 20 pages?
So when you read a book, if you read it leisurely, it's fine. But if you want to retain it, and there is a certain method that I used was the active recalling method. So what I did was that after those 200 pages, like I just mentioned as an example, when I made 20 pages, I wrote all the important points, and not just the whole point, just the keywords that need to be reproduced in the exam as such. And I can always add something out of my understanding, out of the concepts that I've understood in the real-time conditions. So out of those 200 pages, just write the keywords which you want to revise one day before the exam. Then out of those 20 pages, decreasing it to 2 pages is a very difficult task. How you can do that is, for example, if you're reading a topic ABC, then you recall that. That is called as the active recalling method. And when you recall that, the points that you're missing, or the very juicy points, which can get you brownie points in the marks, or which are not given in the usual books, and you've perhaps studied a different book for the subject, then you write those in those 2 pages. That is, here you follow the active recalling method when you're decreasing it, but at the very initial stage from 200 to 20 pages, you're just writing the keywords. So that was my concept behind the rule of 1/10. And coming to the first aspect of your question, that is the hyperlinking method. So by hyperlinking method, I meant that whenever you're searching something, then for example, if there is Kaziranga National Park, example that I usually cite is, if I'm searching that, then the Wikipedia page gives Kaziranga National Park, and it also mentions about the mini Kaziranga, that is Pobitoda. So Kaziranga, what do you find? The rhinos. So rhinos, when you open it, then you have the IUCN status, what is the census, what is the density of the rhino, which other countries are the rhinos found, which other national parks are the rhinos found. So basically from one Wikipedia page, you are moving to multiple Wikipedia pages. So that was my concept of the hyperlinking method.
Another question, what you said, I will just interlink with that. What happens is that these all Google, etc., or YouTube, etc., you will always find, let's assume I just Google myself to see what interview Darpan Ahluwalia has given on an IS. I'll find 10 more. But how do you restrain yourself? Because as a youngster, that restraint power, because you may be looking at Darpan Ahluwalia, one who's studying for an IS, suddenly finds a good music song. You will feel, why not listen to that? This one can do. So how to funnel that energy into the right perspective?
So for that, the brain cannot go in a very single direction. It also requires its breaks. And so what one can do is that have to study for 2 hours and then give a 15 to 20 minute slot to yourself for your entertainment. So do not be very do not go the only the education way, go the edutainment way. So study for 2 hours, only then you open your YouTube or whichever application that you're on, and then go on it for 15 to 20 minutes. Let it be a very timed break. Initially it will be very difficult for you to keep keep a tab on the timer, but keep a timed break and then keep your phone aside, keep all your gadgets aside. And one thing I would suggest is that do not be socially detached, but definitely stay away from social media at such times. And even my Google page, which shows you the suggestions on your phone. So what happens is that obviously it's all algorithmic based. So all the pages that I used to check, all the suggestions that used to come were related to UPSC or to the various websites. And if one really wants to surf the internet, then surf to the websites which give you edutainment and not entertainment solely. So for this, few websites which I can suggest you are, if you want some screen time to relax yourself, you can see The Better India. It is a website which can give you very beautiful case studies and examples all over India, which will not only give you immense fodder for your exam, but also give you motivation to study, keep the phone aside and resume your studies. Other than that, you can see the websites of ORF, World Economic Forum, and also Niti Aayog. It is a treasure trove of information, their website in itself. Another document that I would recommend to you over here, if you want to see something online, is there is a case study compendium across the states and union territories of India, which is by Niti Aayog. It is a beautiful case study document. So do look towards it. And eventually what will happen is that your Google algorithm will pick up the best pages that you have surfed. So make sure that you do that and give yourself good dose of edutainment and not just entertainment. And do not just get into the flow of listening to songs. Abhi ek gana sununga to mujhe motivation aa jayegi, main Lakshya ka gana sununga, motivation aa jayegi, etc., etc. That doesn't really come. You have to be technical about the exam and not emotional about the exam at the end of the day. So
I think because the tips given by Darpan are absolutely very, very essential tips. And but somewhere in the background, if instrumental music is playing, there's no harm. It doesn't distract you much. But I totally liked your edutainment point, especially The Better India and things like that. I think these feel-good ways of not only learning but also getting motivated are very, very important. And to read a case study which inspires you and gives you knowledge is the best way to learn. Plus, Government of India websites, you'll be surprised as to how much information and knowledge they can give you. I know for a fact that some people have worked very hard on these websites. Often India underestimates the kind of knowledge and availability of information which is there. You will find tremendous knowledge coming out of those websites, and some of them are very meticulously updated. Many of them are a little lethargic and slow, but that is all technical issues. Otherwise, I think the intent is good. Very few of them are actually tom-tomming what the government is doing or politicizing it. They have to be official in the way they present the information and not one-sided. So I think it is a good idea to spend a lot of time on websites.
Yes, sir. In fact, one is asking some tips from Mr. Atre also. And rather, I will ask a question from both of you, because for any examination, one has to read extensively and intensively. And then how do you finalize all those things? What would be the best 3 tricks according to you? And then we will take from Dr. Darpan also. What are the 3 tricks which are up your sleeves that helps you to uncode that?
Yeah, so I'll give my perspective. Of course, I came from the HCS and then I came to the IAS. But my journey has been one of, being very observant and being able to assimilate knowledge and information wherever you go. You met someone on the train to Delhi whenever the train is running Shatabdi, and that person is with you for 3 hours. He may be from a totally different background or state, but something should remain with you so that you have made some use of those 3 hours, apart from what you have read in your own paperwork or your book. There is something to be learned from each person you meet. So I think that is one point which I would like to say, that always keep your eyes and ears open and park that information somewhere in your brain where you will be able to use it later. You cannot make notes of everything, and those notes may not be easily accessible at the time when you need them. So just try and be observant and assimilative in your approach. Secondly, I'd like to say that reading books is a habit which you have to acquire much earlier than when you start preparing for the exam. So those youngsters who have been reading till class 10 or class 9, they used to read storybooks and then they stopped because they got into class 10, their parents said, Kya padho and all that. Then, you know, class 11, 12, and then they get into the college where they don't listen to their parents at all. And then they don't want to read books, they want to go out. So the time for reading books goes away. Those who read books are going to be more knowledgeable, more expressive, more aware. They will have wider perspectives. And I always say that when you are reading a book, you are more connected to that great man or woman whose book you are reading than you can be even if that person is sitting right across, because you are diving deep into the mind of a great author, hopefully a great author. Though there are some authors who are worth only entertainment, that's fine. So it is good to get connected to great ideas and thoughts through books. And you never know when you will need that bit of information and knowledge and awareness and perspective in your life. The third is to be a good communicator. That is a quality which you have to develop early in your life. Writing ability, speaking ability, even your body language, even your aura and your personality. You have to, like Darpan said, the personality test at the end of the civil services exam procedure or process is a test of how you are, not what you know. So how you are develops over the years. You can't just suddenly in 1 month change from being someone who is slippery and slimy and shifty, being someone who is stable and calm and collected. You have to be that all the while in your journey. So I would give these generic tips. As regards the specific tips for the UPSC exam, I would say that you need to practice a lot of questions before the prelims. You need to be very, very aware of the methodology that you're going to adopt. Some people, they go for those questions which they know 100% first. Then they'll go for those they think they know 75% of that question. And they don't do any other question. They leave it because there's negative marking also. And if you go to the main exam, then you have to really practice your essay, your ethics paper, your optional, your GS, your English, or whatever it is. You have to practice, practice, practice. And as Darpan said, the interview stage or the personality test stage is actually the honeymoon stage. But for that, you cannot, in my view, prepare only in those 2 or 3 months. You have to be preparing in these 3 years your personality to be ready for that day. That's my overview.
Okay, over to Dr. Darpan.
So, I think the first tip from my side would be that one needs to be very thorough with the syllabus. One anecdote that I can share with you all right now is that during my internship, when I decided to study for this exam, I talked to a 2011 batch IAS officer who was my senior. So he told me that there are 2 optionals. I didn't care to check the current pattern of the exam. So for many months, I believed that there are 2 options. So do not be so aloof from the syllabus. Read your syllabus. So if I was so unaware at that time, so it is, so you are in a much better position to the aspirants out there. If this encourages you, you are in a much better position than me if you know the syllabus right now. So the syllabus is your arsenal. Read the syllabus well. Imbibe each and every word which is written in it, especially with respect to the ethics exam. To all the UPSC aspirants who are listening to this conversation right now, for GS4, that is ethics, all the terms which are given in the syllabus, you're supposed to memorize them very well, because that will form the very foundation of what you write in the exam. So first tip would be learn, memorize your syllabus very well. It is your first and foremost arsenal which will help you crack through the exam and to filter out all that is unnecessary. So once you know the syllabus by heart, you become a selective sponge. You get to know the art of filtering out stuff, which saves out on your time as well as effort. Secondly, would be the concept of speed reading. I think in the question, somebody has again asked this question about how to speed read. So by speed reading, I mean that once one knows the syllabus, you leave out the topics which are not required in the exam. If you know the concept, you just need to write 2 pages for a 10 marker and 3 pages for a 15 marker. So you do not have to do intensive research, or you do not have to do a PhD, so to say, on any aspect. So for that, just do the speed reading. And coming to the third aspect is that the art of note making, and how to make your answer very innovative. That is this tip is about that. So whenever you're reading something, refrain reading it from the ready-made synopsis, because it is like a concoction which has been prepared by an individual other than you, according to his or her understanding. So if some government report is there, for example, of late, there were many chemical disasters. So there is a report of the regarding the chemical disasters, or about the telemedicine guidelines for that matter during COVID, which have been given by NITI Aayog and MCI. So when you read those, do not read a synopsis which is available online. Go to the official website, download the report, and read the executive summary only, not the whole report. It will be very time consuming and futile. Read the summary, and then draw all the diagrams and the timelines which are given in that report. So that will give you brownie points on the D-Day, because only the textual part, it will not break the monotony of the examiner. If you have made a very interesting diagram and you have shown interlinkages in that, or say you have made a timeline of the various chemical disasters and the legislations that have come up over the years in the Indian context, that will definitely fetch you good points. So this would be my third point, that read directly from get the information directly from the horse's mouth, and build your own understanding about it, rather than reading ready-made concoctions or synopsis of that topic itself.
Since the topic is in bilingual, I will just ask, since you have cracked the exam and Mr. Athre is also a mentor on this. Many people feel, yeah, padhai nahi itni zaruri, ye to lucky bahut thi. So you believe that there is an IAS officer, or for that academics, like a lot of people, especially in the younger age, when they are in teens, they believe, because the friend will say, I don't study at all, but I get the marks, I don't know. Do you feel that for a success mantra in studies, not I'm talking of competitive exams, I'm also talking for the children who are in the teens, 10th and 12th, do you believe that one can score marks without actually studying? Like you said, you have to at least log for 10 to 12 hours for cracking the bureaucrat IAS examinations. Even for the other examination, do you believe that what children do carry the notion, because their friends will say, yaar, main to padhta hi nahi, pata nahi number kaise aa jate hain. What is your belief in that?
So definitely there are many things which come together to crack the exam. However, I think that when there is so much of competition in today's era, every candidate is ready to push the other candidate off the ledge. There is, even if you have a truckload of information and you do not know how to apply it and reproduce it in the exam, it will be of no use, because there is so much of competition. So I think the fact कि पढ़ने से भी clear हो जाएगा, या मैं तो इतना पढ़ता हूँ, शायद मेरा luck ही नहीं साथ दे रहा, या or people will go to the astrologer and say कि मेरे कुछ planetary alignment में कुछ ऐसी कमजोरी है. So I think do not get into this extraneous stuff, and just focus on what is in your hands. So luck will come only when you study. So you are actually strengthening your luck by studying. So forget about A, B, C determinants, and just do what is in your hand. And this aspect is not just for studies. Later in life also, multiple incidents will happen, some of which are not under your control. So fix what is under your control and let the other things just be. Everything will fit into it once you have a very single direction. Like you have seen a horse, when it runs, then there are blinders onto the sides. So it moves in a single direction. So just be like that horse. These thoughts which are coming from different sides, be it luck, planetary alignment, and everything, it is all a background noise, and you just need to filter it. So this is the thing, jitna padhoge, utna hi aapka luck strong hoga.
Thankfully, because a lot of people thought that the more you study, the more you forget. The more you forget, the less you know. Then why study? So, but you have taught that the filtration of the thought process and making a sponge is better. I will ask Mr. Atre to take the next question.
Yeah, Darpan, I'm going to ask you a question that what is the reason why so many people want to aspire for the civil service? What are the reasons, do you think? What was your reason? And what should be the mindset of a person who actually is seeking to enter the civil service? What should he or she be looking forward to?
So with respect to entering into the civil services, I think it's a very subjective decision, so to say. And it's a very strong decision. I think the day the person makes this decision, according to me, the person is a winner in himself or herself. And there are multiple reasons, but for me, my reason was, as told before, that during my internship, my experiences in the labor room, they were very heavy experiences, and I really wanted to do something towards it in the additional capacity than that of a medico. And later, as when I was in the NGO also doing work on breast cancer awareness and extension services, I realized that with greater resources and authority, and perhaps to the same efforts, I can reach a greater strata of the society, not only with respect to health, but other things also that I'm really passionate about. So this was my reason of sitting for this exam. But as a generic reason, I would say that once a person has the purity of the reason and the motivation, then it will take you a long way to maintain your motivation in this exam. So I think the first and the foremost reason for sitting for this exam should have in itself a lot of purity, because God will also favor those who have the purity of the reason. It should not be an XYZ reason, have a very solid reason for sitting for this exam. So I think this is my take on the reason.
I think you've actually said it very well. I'm glad you brought God into the picture also, because in the UPSC exam, there are no marks for being close to God. But there is something that the Almighty blesses everyone who is sincere. But I would also like to add that many young people actually aspire for the civil services or for a premier service because of the status and the perks involved. So basically they think that, the family wants us to be there and they would be very proud, and which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that, of course, Lal Batti to chali gayi, that earlier they used to say that Lal Batti ki wajah se. Now there's no Lal Batti associated with IAS or IPS officers. But the point is that it has to be a service-oriented aspiration. So you rightly said that when you saw in the labor room of Patiala hospitals that you were not happy with the way public service delivery, and delivery I don't mean in that sense right now, public service delivery is being carried out, you felt that I can do something for the nation by joining the civil services. That has to be the kind of approach. Instead of following an approach of gaining something, a perk and a status and power, which should be secondary. And then, but we are human, so when people come into the civil services, they have good aspirations at times. After 5 years, some people change. After 10 years, more people change. But many people still remain the same. I've seen very dedicated officers. So I think that is the approach to adopt. Because I have an engagement, so if you can permit me to take leave.
Sir, aaj to it's Dr. Darpan's day. You need not have my permission. We are common host. Dr. Darpan has to.
You are the real host, but I would like to say thank you to everybody. And Darpan is answering the questions so beautifully well. And she's so level-headed and so mature already. I am very impressed with the way she's answering. I also had an interaction with another topper a few days ago, and he was also amazingly level-headed, balanced. So I think we are looking forward to a great future for the country. All the best, Darpan.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All the best to all the other candidates for the exam. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Dr. Darpan, this next question is, could you explain what is the ecosystem on which you are time and again emphasizing a lot?
Right. So the ecosystem is basically the environment, not only the physical, but also the psychological and the emotional environment in which you will be studying for 1 year or a couple of years, as much as the exam demands from you. So by this ecosystem, it could be a library or sitting at home and studying, or going to some other place where there are good coaching classes which are available if you are in favor of not doing self-study and doing pursuing the coaching aspect first and then going for the self-study. It is a very subjective call. So, but the basic crux of every and any ecosystem that you might choose in this is that you should have a set of people whom you can fall back upon when you have anxiety or other negative emotions. They should be there or there should be people who can identify those emotions and help you with reasoning out the cause behind those emotions, and then you can fix them. For example, I didn't go to any place outside my hometown, that is Mohali, to Delhi or to other places, because I believed that I need my family. I had been away for 6 years from my home during my graduation, and I wanted their emotional and psychological support for cracking this exam. And I believed that even if cracking the exam takes more time, doesn't matter. But I should live my life fully, and there should be a certain sense of psychological comfort in my head. So that is what I mean by an ecosystem, which is very comforting for you, psychologically primarily.
So like you said that some people believe that one should go to Delhi, some people feel that there should be online system. You felt that the family is good enough. So according to you, that there could not be one size shoe which fits all. Everybody has to see which size of the shoe fits him and what is the best way to move forward and what is the most comfortable part of the shoe which he or she can actually cherish upon.
Absolutely. And we always have the internet to fall back upon.
That's what I'm saying. For that, you have to have actually a focus, because internet is also, as they say, that any technology are all having all two sides of the coin, except where we say in Sholay, where it only had one side. So you have to focus that while looking upon the internet, you continue to retain that particular part where you actually want to focus. Just like what was Arjun being told, that you just have to look at the eye and not the entire this thing. And this is by Pooja. Please suggest some tips on the answer writing and how to cover the current affairs.
So coming to the current affairs part first, because it is a prerequisite for answer writing. For current affairs, you have to make the foundation. With the newspaper, you have to follow religiously every day. The newspaper need not be only the Hindu, it could be some other newspaper which is comprehensible to you. For example, it could be the Indian Express. It is an equally good newspaper if you can understand it through. And for the newspaper, you do not have to read the whole thing. Spending 2.5 hours on a single newspaper out of 24 hours of a day is the biggest folly you can ever make. Because at the end of the day, there has to be a cost benefit analysis. You are intelligent enough to choose that you have to sit for this exam. So you better be intelligent enough not to spend so much of time on a single thing out of which you are reaping out less of the benefits. So what you need to do is that read the syllabus, memorize it well, and then you read the newspaper. Select and read only those topics in the newspaper which are relevant to your preparation, not any topic which is given in the newspaper. So around 45 minutes via speed reading to the newspaper should be sufficient. Then you have to follow some Government of India website. For example, I followed PIB. Follow PIB every day and make micro notes out of the various news which you feel is relevant to the prelims exam. And then you can follow one or two websites, private coaching websites online, and take down their current affairs synopsis from that. So with all these three sources, government website, a private website, and a newspaper, your current affairs preparation will be very comprehensive and complete. Then you have to revise these current affairs, say after every quarter of a year. No need to revise these current affairs every day, because you're coming across the same news every day. So no need to revise it every month. Also, I would say every quarter of a year, you can go through your current affairs notebook, because they are repeating every day. Then coming to the your first part of the question, that is the answer writing aspect. So whenever you write your first answer, do not worry about the quality or the time taken in writing it. You might be taking an hour to write 150 words. That is okay, because that is your first time. So for about 2 to 3 months, I would say, write guided answers. That is when you're writing a single answer, then you write what all is in your brain at that moment via the active recalling method. Write everything in points. Then you search out that answer in the standard textbooks and the notes that you have made. Then you compare it to a model answer which is given online. So then you will realize what are your strengths and weaknesses, how you should have written the answer, what is the format of the answer. Do this. Secondly, your answer needs to be very comprehensive with respect to the format. There needs to be a beginning, that is the explanation of what is answered in the question. आपने एग्जामिनर को बताना है, हाँ मुझे क्वेश्चन आपका समझ आ गया है. आई एम नॉट राइटिंग एनीथिंग विच इज कमिंग टू माई माइंड. आई एम राइटिंग अकॉर्डिंग टू द डिमांड ऑफ द क्वेश्चन. So it could be a definition of what is written, or it could be, for example, we discussed about chemical disasters. If there is a question asking what are the guidelines of NDMA on chemical disasters, then your first line should be that of the chemical disasters, so and so chemical disasters have occurred over the last 1 decade, and the NDMA has promulgated the guidelines. So you have a 2 to 3 line beginning, and then you write your answer in points. I refrain from answering the question in a paragraph. It becomes very monotonous because you are writing a single paper, but the examiner has to check multiple copies. So please make his task very easy by writing it down in points. That will consume less of your points as well, and you will be able to that will consume less of your page as well, and you will be able to answer multiple points. And do not write exclusively on one aspect. Like, do not write exclusively on the environmental aspect, because that will fetch you only 1 point. You have to write on the economical aspect, the cultural aspect, the international aspect, everything. So, and you can also do not use multiple pens, because many children have this query, should we use multiple pens? No, because when you are exchanging that pen, multiplied by the number of times you are exchanging that pen in the exam, that will already consume about 5 to 10 minutes of your exam, which will put you very back in the race. So use one pen, but you can always highlight by putting by underlining or putting the important points in boxes. And then the conclusion should be a very forward looking and a progressive one, because after all you have to respect the seat that you are aiming for. So you have to be you have to be a problem solver. So you have to give case that you can write the conclusion in the form of a case study which is already there in India, some model thing which is happening there in India, or even internationally, which we can take inspiration from. So it has to be a very progressive conclusion. So beginning, the body, and the conclusion. It should be very discernible in the paper. Like when I look at your answer, it should be very visible to me, and I should not spend time finding it, because at the end of the day, the examiner is not going to do that. So this is my funda for answer writing.
Now, next question is how to filter news from a newspaper or from a social media.
Right. So for this, again, the syllabus is your arsenal. Read the syllabus. For example, on the vulnerable groups, for example, we have the LGBTQ. So if there is something which is coming on the transgenders' rights, so read only that topic which is relevant, in the sense that make the points of what the current bill says, and what are the suggestions or the alternatives that you would like to give with respect to this. So what you can do is that take an A4 size sheet, and everything related to that vulnerable group, say the old age, or the children or the adolescents, it should be on that A4 sheet only. So for the transgenders, only that A4 size sheet should be used. Everything which is coming in the newspaper related to that, it should be put on that A4 size sheet only. So this will help you to have a very comprehensive look at the whole topic over multiple days. When that topic ends, you will have a very ready A4 size sheet with all the notes which you can reproduce directly in the examination. So that is the way you should look at news and then make the notes out of it.
This is again, a large number of people are generally asking about newspaper. Ma'am, in newspaper editorials are most important. but one is not able to understand, please guide us about the newspaper reading and how to go about it.
So with respect to the editorial, not every editorial is important with respect to the syllabus that is given. If you feel it is not important, then there is no compulsion to read it. And if you feel that there is some overhead transmission of an editorial, then I would suggest just leave it. It is okay if you leave it. And if still you feel it is important, but you are not able to understand it, then you open up YouTube and then you search for, say, if you're reading the Hindu editorials with that date, you will get many videos which the other aspirants have made or other candidates have made online. Once you see 3 or 4 of those videos on 3 or 4 consecutive days, then on the 5th day yourself, you will know what to read, how to read, and how to make the notes. So that way you can have a guided approach. But it is not mandatory. If you do not understand something from the newspaper, then just leave the editorial, I would say, because at the end of the day, you have to do your cost benefit analysis.
So rather than taking them, they can always go to the YouTube. What will be your mantra for the newspaper reading if you have to give it? Let's assume we are now this webinar ultimately will be going to the YouTube. We take that particular mantra as to how one should read the newspaper and editorial. What is your take on that?
Sorry, I didn't understand the question.
I said that since large number of, I could see we have been doing webinars on different perspective. I'm seeing today there are large number of participants which invariably we don't come on our platform. They are more of the students, so I'm also finding it slightly different questions coming across. The large number are only asking as to how these newspapers should be analyzed, because rightly said, and law also we say that first you have to read whatever case you have from page to page, then a sum of that summary, that what you said from 200 to 220, and then 10. We also prepare a case, then they say that give a list of dates and events. So what is that mantra even in the newspapers? Because it so happens, I will not give an example like today's, we are all flogged with the suicide case, etc. Though there will not be much question on that particular aspect, but yes, it definitely covers a lot of pages. So how to skip that and what is relevant and how to filter that? What you said that you have to do filtration test, absorption test, and then moving forward. So what is your mantra for that and how to move forward for that?
So for example, if there is some case or an incident in which the media has a lot of interest, like you just mentioned about this Bollywood case which is going on. So one tends to read that, okay, I should know what are the latest updates on the case and everything. You need to curb that temptation to read what is going on, or even the various incidents that are happening which are not related to UPSC aspect. So for example, if there is somewhere there is a robbery or something and it has happened in your city, then one tends to think, okay, let me just read through it, curb that temptation. And on the first page of the newspaper, I would say read only the important topics. The first page of the newspaper is important. Then and then comes the editorial page. So you can skip through the middle pages only if you're preparing for the state exam. Then you need to give a very cursory glance to your state. For example, if somebody is from Punjab over here, then you just give a glance to the Punjab page. If someone is from Haryana, then the Haryana page. That is enough. No need to read the multiple pages which are there till the editorial. From the first page, you directly come to the editorial page, read the relevant editorial, and then you come to the international page. So these 3 or 4 pages are the only newspaper pages that you need to actually read. No need to read the sports page. If there is something very important, it will definitely come in the current affairs summary of the coaching class that you're following online. So as I said, the current affairs include the newspaper, the government website, and the private coaching website, which you can follow which are available online. So you can tally all the sports current affairs and the other current affairs that you have left out in the newspaper while reading only these 3 to 4 newspaper. And I think this should be sufficient. Only 3 to 4 pages of newspaper are required to be read. Don't read the rest of the information. Don't read the local newspaper. It will be very redundant. After all, you're sitting for an All India Services exam, so it is not required. You need to read from the page to page only before the personality test, that is the interview. No need to read it before the prelims or the mains preparation.
This is by Abhishek. He says how to differentiate between nearby answers and options of a pre-exam when every option invariably seems to be correct.
So if every option invariably seems to be correct, then the best advice would be to leave that question. However, if you have, if two options are, you have eliminated them and two options look similar to you, then you should definitely attempt that question. In dire circumstances, like out of 100 questions, you have till now attempted only 60 or 65 questions. That is a very tricky range to be in. So your number of questions should be around 75 to 80 at least, which you have attempted out of 100 questions to make you sail very comfortably through the qualification mark for prelims. So what you do in this scenario is that you follow the elimination method. And that is, you keep on eliminating upon the basis of the information that you have. For example, there is, if I talk about Manipur, there is the Battle of Khonjom, and there is a Khonjom Parba and the other things in Manipur which are related to Khonjom. I have very less information about Manipur as a state, but this Khonjom, I knew about this Khonjom, Battle of Khonjom. So in the paper, they asked, they had used the word Khonjom somewhere. So you have to actively relate it with your foundational information which is in your head. So when you see the word Khonjom, Manipur should come to you. When Manipur comes, then the Northeast comes. So that way, if you have the interlinkages of the information, then you can easily solve any question with the elimination method. So this is, for example, any question which is related to, say, history. You can also solve it by this elimination method. If you can eliminate two options, then you should definitely attempt the question. If you have eliminated only one option, then I recommend you not to go for that question because it can lead to negative mark.
Now, ma'am, is coaching important or one should do self-studies? What is your take on that?
So that's a very subjective question. And to be honest, I did join a coaching class, but I had to drop out of it. But I had my own reasons for doing that. I was doing my internship duties in the hospital, which was attached to my college. And I did not want to put in that much time and effort. And I believe that with self-study only, I will be able to reap better dividends. So that is my funda. If you can do self-study, then well and good. Otherwise, guidance is always welcome. And even if you take it from online or offline sources by joining a coaching class, that is your own call. But at the end of the day, do not have this regret that you couldn't clear the exam just because you didn't join a coaching class. So in order to avoid that regret, if you want some guidance from somewhere, that is always welcome, but it is your own own call. But at the end of the day, a very honest advice to you would be that this exam is cleared solely on the basis of self-study. Otherwise, many synopses are available in the market. You can always download them, but then everybody will be feeding on the same stuff. That will not lead to a very innovative answer in your question paper, and you will be awarded less marks for that. So I think self-study is the key.
So ultimately, before we part off, according to you, is that you may have the wings, but ultimately, if you don't have the desire to fly, you will not fly. You can be just like an ostrich.
Right.
So ultimately, the desire to fly is a prerequisite for doing well, and that is the way to fly. And so, thank you, Dr. Darpan. The questions will continue to pour on, as we say, but we take you from what you said that ultimately the time is the essence, and one should move within the time constraint. So we complete the webinars. And endeavor is to complete by 1.5 hours. So we are touching that clock, and the way you have given the insights are not only insightful for the participants who have been watching us on the Facebook as well as on this platform, but I'm quite sure that those who will watch us on the YouTube channel of Beyond Law CLC, they will be definitely be gained. As they say that even if in 1 hour, if you can just pick one point which can help you, will definitely good for the entire day or for entire life, I would say. And the insights what you have given, I'm quite sacrosanct to the effect that large number of people, not only the children or parents who are watching it, will definitely get a direction, because they say that any good advice is just like a lamppost. They can show you the right direction even in the dark alleys of thought process. So thank you, Dr. Darpan, and we wish all the best for your new assignment. And we are quite hopeful that the India in your hands will be in a much, much better way, because they say that a good thought process is just like a right light matchbox, which can show the right light and spark off the right things in the right place. Thank you.
Thank you. And also,
yeah, and
thank
everyone
you.
stay safe, stay blessed. And tomorrow, back to our, we will be on the profile of the webinars, which are invariably being kept with the essence of law, because primarily we have the participants from the law. Tomorrow we have Justice N. Kumar, from former judge of Karnataka High Court, on part performance, transfer of property act. So do stay connected with us tomorrow 4 p.m. Everyone stay safe and stay blessed and be happy. And as ma'am said, be positive. That is the more key to success. Over you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.